love this thing. I've owned and daily driven an i30N for 3 years. Today I'm going to discuss the issues, the pros and cons that come along with N ownership. No, it's not a new or used car review, there's plenty of those out there. It's about the things I've endured from the excitement of purchasing it new through till now. So there you go, the new school car. Come on now. Howdy. We just finalised all the paperwork, have the keys to the new baby, the new beast. Let's go and check it out. Let's start it up. Oh my goodness. We've just picked up the car, it's running, everything's ready to rock. I have no idea how any of this operates at all, but we will work that out, that is not a problem. We have 20 kilometers on the clock. 20 kilometers. I don't think I've had a car with that little amount of kilometers ever. So, oh yeah, the clutch is okay if you play with it. I thought I'd stall. Oh shit. I just pushed the clutch in like it's the Audi. That's bizarre. I can't drive it. It's bizarre. Not just our
Children crossing ahead.
What the hell was that?
In 700 meters, speed camera ahead, 100 kilometers per hour speed limit.
So we've got one local spot. What the f? Every time I go to talk, pretty much, it wants to do something. How do we piss that off? So, the first pros and cons. Pro, it's got all the safety alerts. Con, it was fucking annoying. Anyway, moving on. The interior is adequate. I've got 3 children around 6 foot tall, so it's a bit of a squeeze. The plastics are cheapish, but I'm not really worried because my car is a rather high performance car for a very low outlay. The seat, surprisingly enough, the seat has been fantastic considering I've got, or had, probably 3 to 4 people, different people a day coming in and out of the car for their driving lessons. The bolster hasn't worn too bad on the right side of my leg here. They usually wear out pretty badly. Same with the bolster here. So that's pretty good. But the plastics themselves on the doors haven't fared too well. I don't know what happened, but there's a hole in the front door on the vinyl and there's one in the back door too. The front's worse. And just the hard plastic scratch up pretty easy. But that's probably the worst of it. If you own one of these, you're not going to be buying it so that you can fit your kids and your luggage in there to go camping and holidaying. You're buying it probably for a selfish reason, and that's to enjoy your driving and to experience that performance that the N provides for a really affordable outlay. My old Veloster had a subwoofer and 10 speakers, I think it was, or something crazy, and it was freaking amazing, the sound quality, and you could really just crank. It was very impressive. This has been shortcut. I just have to say it. It's bearable, but if you want to crank some tunes, you're not really going to get the quality unless you replace. I don't even know what you can replace these days. Speakers only, I think, and maybe install an amp. I don't know how modern stuff works with these new. There's no actual radio anymore. It's all the screen. So yeah, everything on here is fundamentally the same as most cars. It's all fine. I don't know if people can analyze it too much. It's just not as good as I think it could be. I've done all my scheduled servicing. My 50,000 kilometer service was $434. That's with no issues popping. It's not too bad. It's not out of this world considering you're looking at a performance car. I've never been a fan for dealership servicing. Don't really want to do it, but I do it while the car's under warranty, just in case there are issues. I don't want to go away to another mob who get it serviced and come back with a complaint to Hyundai and they say, oh, they didn't do that properly. That's all I've got to say with fuel. No, seriously, look, if you're buying an i30N, you shouldn't be buying it if you want to be a fuel miser. Average driving, doing lessons, I was getting around 11 to 11.5 in the city, highway driving a little bit less. Getting a little more enthusiastic and a bit rich on the pedal, 12.5 to 13. I probably filled up 20% more often than I would have with my previous car. Now, in normal driving in the suburban streets, it's okay, it's adequate. But when you get out to a little bit of bush and higher speed and there's no one around and you use that high beam, it's a very narrow beam. It's not really, it doesn't provide any length or distance. I find that rather disappointing, particularly if you want to go night driving. No complaints. For a front wheel drive car, it handles freaking amazing. Most front wheel drive cars want to understeer, but this has a majority of lift off oversteer, which is good and bad. The ELSD and the chassis design and the tyre combination really helps the car rotate and grip through corners. It is pretty mind-boggling. There is a con and a downside to it, and we'll get to that soon. Now, Hyundai have, I think it's a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, and they track day warrant the i30N, which is fantastic as long as it's not competitive driving or track racing. I've had no real warranty issues pop up, nothing major. There's been a couple of things. Currently, I'm waiting for I think it's the bimodal flap that's used on the exhaust to open her up when you go into N mode. When it's in just basic eco or normal mode, don't drive eco. It has a really tinny, rattling, vibrating noise, and it's quite off-putting. Sounds really cheap. Other problem, windscreen. The windscreen sounded like rice bubbles. It has a creaking, groaning sound around the outside. What I've deduced over the time is that's down to a couple of things. Firstly, I have no fucking idea why it's doing it. It's obviously something in the build, but it's worse in N mode because of the suspension setup. It's so much stiffer. It's worse in winter, and it was worse with the P0s on. It was a bit off-putting. It's constantly going. It's fucking sounded like that. Pirelli P fucking zeros designed to match the i30N. They're a really good tyre and obviously designed for the car, and they're great for handling. But they're not a high kilometre tyre. They wear really quickly, and they contributed a lot to the sound, that audible tone I had with the windscreen. I managed to stretch the first set out to 18,000 kilometres. Being 19s, we have a very low profile too, so that probably didn't help. But to overcome that problem, I actually increased my profile size, went to a slightly wider tyre, which gave me a slightly higher profile. So these are 245, 35, 19s. I think originally they were 235s or 225s, I can't remember, which gave me a slightly lower profile, therefore a harsher ride, affecting the windscreen, particularly in that N mode. These are my third set of tyres. These are Falcon 510s. Really awesome tyre. Not far off a Pirelli in my opinion. Really affects the lift-off oversteer. So the P0s, I found the lift-off oversteer was okay. It was controllable. It wasn't too obvious. The second set of tyres I had were Dunlop SP Sports, I think they were. Horrible tyre. I did not like them at all. Very wooden feeling. I don't know if you get what I mean by that. But they didn't perform really well, and the car tended to do more oversteer, so you didn't get much of the lift-off oversteer. The 510s, however, the Falcons, are very similar to the Pirellis, and if anything, I get probably a little more, maybe even sometimes a little too much, lift off oversteer. But as I mentioned, with time you'll get to master that. The brakes are fucking amazing, really grippy abrasive brakes, and that's what makes them pull up very well. No brake fade, pretty much doing laps. They keep going and going and going. But there is a downside. It chewed the rotor out completely to the point where it was dangerous. They were grinding and the pads were gone completely as well. I was down to metal on the pads and I chewed out my rotors. The cost to replace it through Hyundai here in Brisbane, $1,200 per rotor, plus the pads, plus fitting. So I was looking at somewhere over $2,500. I managed to source a set of rotors from England through Godspeed Brakes. Thank you. Shipped to Australia to my door for less than just under $1,200 for the pair. Bought some Ultima pads, I think they're called. Put them on and yada yada, put everything together, and she's fine. She drives just like original. These have lasted longer. I believe they're wearing better. They brake just as good, but I think they don't have as much tolerance for heat as the original set did. Yes, the clutch, in my opinion, is a little bit of a negative with the i30N. It's very finicky on takeoff. The clutch has a spring effect to it, and as you're releasing it, if you're not careful, it buckles your knee out and pops out and you stall really easily. Majority of people who hop in it for the first time stall. So Hyundai developed and installed special software to aid with that initial starting point when taking off. And what the car does is it raises the revs a little bit to supply a bit more engine power to cover the stall or cover that load when the everything starts to engage. And that's the problem that people were having. They're not balancing long enough and having enough power, accelerator noise, revving, to compensate for the load the car, or the clamp force that the car is experiencing. Simple as that. It is just a pain in the ass if you're not used to it, and it used to give me great concern for my day-to-day training of other people. Like everything, you'll get used to it, but I just think it's not a great clutch feel and a great setup. It's a fucking good car. I'm happy. It's cost me more than I thought on a few things, but it's brought a lot of smiles to my dials and kept me happy. It keeps my sanity. I can go out and have a thrash after work, let off some steam out in the bush, not on normal traffic, you know, and yeah, I've got no real qualms with it. There are others that have had problems, but that happens with any brand. Hyundai have come a long way in the last 15 years. People still underestimate them and underrate them. I rate this up there, but that's just me. If today's video is the kind of content you'd like to see a little bit more of, or maybe you've got a car in Brisbane that's something a little bit unique and you've owned it for a long period of time and you'd like to talk about what's going on with it and you don't mind being on camera, maybe we could get together and do a few more videos like this. I'd like that. I think that'd be fun. If this tickled your fancy, whatever the hell that is, please like and share, that's all I ask. For more regular updates, apart from the videos, you can catch us over at Instagram and TikTok. I'll put them on the screen somewhere. Find it, buy it, fix it, flip it, have some fun along the way. Remember Rushy, and ciao. I'm gonna go give this a little bit of a tickle up. See ya. I just did it all fucking 10 times. Okay, ready? No, that's not what I want to say. Next! Fuck, I put some fucking hours into this to get 400 views.